Let's kick things off live this morning. Our political panel in-house. Calvin Dark is a Democratic strategist and president of RC Communications. Diante Johnson joins us. He is the Republican strategist and president of the Black Conservative Federation, a founder of that group as well. Welcome this Sunday morning. It's not often we get to sit here today and talk about something that happened in the House yesterday. Let me start with you, Diante. This debate over foreign aid has been going on for months. The White House has been asking for it, lobbying, begging, cajoling. Iran attacks last weekend against Israel. Was that the thing that made this happen?
You know, I believe that was a contributing factor, but I also believe that election promises had something to do with that as well. You know, in reflecting on what happened yesterday, I just hope that now we can put America first and put, you know, Black Americans around the country and homeless Americans around the country first instead of putting other countries first.
Calvin, there was a lot of pushback from conservative Republicans. They are still angry about it right now. We just talked to Shannon Bream about how Marjorie Taylor Greene is threatening a motion to vacate against Speaker Johnson. Does the fact that this House is still in array in an election year, is that beneficial to Democrats, or are they going to come to Mike Johnson's rescue if something happens where Republican conservatives start pushing for him to vacate?
I think the chaos that we saw kind of sends the message to voters that Republicans aren't in a position to lead. I think it wasn't lost on anyone yesterday that Speaker Johnson, when he talked about Congress did the right thing, most of his party didn't agree to do the right thing on Ukraine. And so it was the Democrats with the Speaker that did the right thing. And I also think that it shows that the strategy of the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the all or nothing, and literally nothing gets done unless it's all, isn't exactly what Americans want, because they know that's not how the real world works.
Diante, you mentioned there were other things that Congress should be focusing on. If the United States is not supporting its allies, doesn't that put a larger burden on the U.S. if things continue to spiral out of control in these war zones?
It does, but America's out of control. Under this administration, we have seen the migrant crisis just take over America. I'm from Chicago, and talking to individuals in Chicago, the streets, the safety of what they're experiencing there in Chicago. We have a war in our country, and whether we believe it or not, we have disaster in our country. Yes, there's disasters overseas, but there's disaster here at home. We have to do something with our southern border. That's what's most important right now.
But it's one thing to point at a program. Have Republicans been vocal enough about what the solutions to these things are, besides this blanket statement of securing the border?
Well, securing the border is most important. I mean, building the wall, you know, making sure that our southern border, we're not allowing people in and they're just running rapid around our country. That's important.
Even the White House acknowledges that the border is in crisis right now. This is something that the administration has kind of pointed to over its time in the White House right now and said, we're working on it, we're working on it. The problem keeps getting worse. Is this something that Joe Biden needs to address right now, or this is really going to come back to bite him in November? Because people are talking about this, even if they disagree on exactly what the solution is.
Yeah, it's a real concern from voters from all parties. I think, though, we saw a change in this election year when Biden took the difficult decision to accept a deal that didn't make many people in my party happy, but we realized something needed to be done, and Republicans decided not to. So I do think voters are going to hold him accountable, but they're also going to remember that he's the only one presenting a solution.
All right, let's talk about the campaign right now. Both President Joe Biden and Donald Trump found themselves back in their birth states last week. Biden in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in New York City, however, for very different reasons. Trump facing one of his criminal trials, President Biden in Scranton talking about the economy. What is the juxtaposition that you see in these two individuals right now? Biden is hitting the campaign trail right now, trying to show, I'm out there, I'm campaigning, but Trump is tied down by this trial right now. Does this hurt or help Trump with his own supporters?
This helps like never before.
Explain that, because it looks...
So the Democratic Party has given us a gift that we cannot return, and that gift is constantly using the weaponization of government. They are constantly going after this man on everything with these criminal trials. And there are people around America that are looking at this and saying, why are we going after a political candidate? Why are we constantly going after this man? And, you know, we've even seen Stephen A. Smith talk about how going after President Trump shows that the Democrats they have no plan. They are scared.
If that is true, that gets you your own supporters, which you already had. How does that get you the independent and the moderates that you need to win?
Well, we've seen. You know, we've seen through polling, we've seen that black men are at 30% right now when it comes to supporting President Trump. We've seen that people are, when you do the polling, people are saying that they're tired of hearing about these trials. They're tired of hearing about what's going on with President Trump's criminal cases. They want to know what's going on in their everyday lives. When we talk about what's happening in the Beltway, they want to care about all of the, you know, the nooks and crannies. But at the everyday Americans, they care about putting food on their table. They care about having sustainable jobs. They care about being able to have the safety in their neighborhoods and in their communities.
Calvin, Joe Biden was the vice president of the first African-American president in this country's history. Do you believe that? Is there a problem in Biden world right now with reaching out to African-American men?
No, I think Biden's challenge, as all candidates, is he's not entitled to anyone's vote. He has to earn it. And I think the split screen you mentioned is what's going to help Biden in this election, because he is out there making his case, and he's got to make it to win the votes. Trump is in court and cyberbullying the judge and the jury, and I think Americans can see he's not in it for them.
All right, we're flat out of time. Calvin Dark, Diante Johnson, we appreciate both of you coming in this Sunday morning. We're going to have you back real soon.